another video. In today's video, I'm building this table out of scraps. This is scrap plywood. It was just laying out. It's not even flat. This is scrap pallet wood. It's just a pallet. This was a pallet also. And here's some steel. It was just little chunks of steel I had laying around. So if you want to see how I make this all work, stay tuned. And don't forget to subscribe. All right, so I have a nice piece of high-grade 3/4 inch ply that is just mangled because I tried using my typical saw, like a track saw with this whole track thing, and there was some flex in it. So yeah, and I didn't have a great blade either. But it'll be fine for this. I actually have that pile there that I'm hopefully going to be able to do the edge of this with. Here's my legs. Okay, so this thing's pretty out of whack. So I'm just going to try to pull something nice out of the middle of the ones that are really bad. This big piece here, I'm going to try to use the absolute least of because it's just giant. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get all these down to the right sizes and everything. And then this piece, the angle iron, is going to be what holds these. And then the round bar is going to be what sandwiches them. Hopefully I have enough round bar to go run down the back as well. I'm not sure because I didn't measure, because I don't know. I got to take, some of these boards need to be taken down a little bit to make them straight. Like this one's pretty wonky, but so I don't have the measurements until I do some cutting. Isn't that fun? Here we go. Alright, here's what I'm doing. This is a little twisted. I had another one that was a little twisted, and I waxed some off of it until I got it down to a good size. I had one that was pretty perfect that I just cut in half. So now I've got, that was 2 boards, gives me 3 legs. And now this board here is going to give me my final leg. I set this thing on one side to cut off the hump, basically, on the side by doing that, and then locking in my fence, and then making the cut, which, yeah, I'm not going to film that or else my camera would fall. Okay, it's getting a little hot out there in the direct sun. I was going to whittle off a little bit on the sides of these. I did have to on one because it was broken. But the more I thought about it, I'm like, this is just a shelf that's just holding bags. I'm not going to put any little stuff down there that's going to fall in between the cracks. So spending all that time trying to make those all perfectly aligned together is just a waste of my time. So the next step, I got to cut everything to length and get the chop saw. All right, those are all cut the size, ready to go. Those are all cut the size, ready to go. I had to kind of monkey around with these because these are the legs and they're not actually straight. So I had to kind of monkey around with it a little bit to get them to where they were going to be flat on one end, flat on the other. As long as it's flat on both ends, it doesn't really matter how it gets there. And right now I got it all set up to make cuts for my metal. I cut that one already. I need 2 of these and 2 of those. All right, I got all my cuts done, got my legs, got my shelf, my top shelf, the edging to cover up the plywood edge, and that's the, I guess, the frame. So that holds those boards in a shelf configuration, and then the legs mount on that. Those hold the boards, sandwich the boards in place. All right, so I got all the boards that are going around the edge on the top. These are the ones going bye-bye right here. Get rid of those. But I'm doing this now because I want to use my router on the legs to make them more round. And I want to use the router on there. So I'm going to put that all together. Once I have that together, then I can get the router out and I can do all that and I can do all those and then I can put the router away. And then the only other part is the other part down there, the welding and stuff. So I just basically chose to do this first because there's more parts, right? Like all these little parts, as soon as they're connected to there, it's easier to deal with this stuff. So I start with the parts where there's a lot of parts and I work my way backwards. And this turned out really good on the cuts with the tape. There was some tear out that I just couldn't get around that from the old cut that was there. But, you know, that'll probably be the back. Oh well, there's a little bit, I think this happened here, but no big deal. Not worried about it at all. I have this stuff called wood filler that will make it like brand new-ish. All right, so I'm on the final side of this thing. Basically, I'm just going around, adding the wood, gluing, putting a little dab of glue in there, and then just nailing them a couple times. And this is on there. I think that was the first one I put on. So they're on there. And the whole thing of this is just to make it look nice, so you're not looking at that edge. I did have a contemplation about maybe doing this burnishing technique I'm kind of contemplating, where I would harden the edge of this and possibly shape it with a router first, then harden it with like epoxy, just like paint epoxy onto the surface, and then use like a piece of leather to burnish the end. But I decided not to do that whole test thing on this project because I have this, so I might as well just use it. It is time for putty. This is not your fancy channels joinery here. This is scraps going together to make a table, not to sell for $7,000. All right, everything is router rounded over, and you know they're straightish. But this is actually super not flat. This is bowed, really hardcore, and that's why I'm putting adjustable feet on here, and I'm going to put them on last because these will probably be literally crooked. You know, they'll be coming down to the ground at a weird angle. And this table is wonky. The tabletop itself is wonky, which is going to be interesting because I'm actually going to have to counter the wonkiness somehow. So I use this stuff here, and I was going to use this stuff, but it's old and it dried out, so it's garbage. But I've been using this for years because I just really like this JB's Weld stuff, right? I had one foot here that had a crack in it. There's a little bit that was cracked off, and I just was like, I want to definitely fix it. So I kind of had to change up my plans a little bit. These dowels are gonna just sit on the edge and pinch that down, but it's just not gonna work good. I've got enough extra this to put on that, and it'll just clamp it down nicely. So that's a little change of plans. Now I gotta clean that up and cut it and make it all pretty, and then weld it. Yes, my welding cart. the best welding cart for off-grid applications. You can check out the video above. All right, now you really can see the idea behind this whole system. And I did make a mistake. Somehow I managed to get this all set up and forgot to center my main backbone. So it's like 1 inch off, which is a non-issue. Doesn't mean a thing other than oops. But yeah, the next step is to some staples in here. And I think I'm gonna go ahead and wood putty these holes in the cracks, just because, not these cracks in between, but like that right there, and yeah, pretty much just right there. There's a little cracking. There's a little pretty big chunk out of there. So after I get done doing that, then it's time to sand. And I got so much sanding to do because these boards aren't actually level. And the plan is to just kind of, you know, level this out by sanding it down. So that'll be a lot of sanding. All right, I just got done going at this with the 40 grit belt sander just to get all the boards level. And they're pretty level now. Some of my putty popped out. Other of my putty is completely gone because I sanded it all the way to nothing, which is good. I guess I put putty in too early. I guess now would be a better time to putty instead of at the beginning. But yeah, I mean, it's looking really good. It's just all nice and flat now. Time to get out the disc sander. All right, I just hit the bottom with the orbital on a 100 grit just to knock the dust off, just from whatever. I'm not gonna do, I mean, I'm gonna seal the bottom and stuff, so I guess I just wanted it dust free. And then this has all been taken down, and boy, I sure did do those too soon. Boy, they're almost all gone now. 1, 2, 3 didn't pop out, a little bit over there. But yeah, I'm pretty stoked with it. I just sanded the edges over. I was thinking about routering them, but it's not that big a deal. Sand, as long as nothing catches, that's the whole thing. Can I just slide a bag on there and just throw it there? Then we're good. Well, here's a good excuse or a reason why I'm not a fan of DeWalt. You put a brand new pad on there, and then it just comes off, and you don't see it come off. Why does it come off? Who knows? But then once it comes off and you don't notice, it's freaking toast. 100% garbage. Like, this won't stick to that at all. Little sticky, though, it comes off in 2 seconds. So basically, I have to buy, and I'm sick of DeWalt. Like, I hate DeWalt because of their the garbage tools they put out. They'll just put their name on a tool and just put it out. So I'm not a fan of DeWalt. I've had that for years, and now I literally have to buy a freaking new sander to finish this job. Super awesome. Guy, I can't stand DeWalt. All right, my replacement sander is here. Bosch. I took some time to look up and see why these things, not this one on the Bosch, but these pads here, if you get those too hot, they melt. So now I'm super paranoid about how I'm gonna, because I don't want to ruin that. I don't ever want to ruin another one of these. I watched a video, a guy said he did 7 years. It was a Bosch. He had 7 years on the same pad. But when I'm doing stuff like this, right, and you're trying to sand this, which I might actually pull out a different sander. So, I don't know, let's see what I'm going to do here, because this just needs some sanding and some assembly, and we're good to go. Look at this sander, though. Isn't that pretty? Cordless. Ooh. Yeah, Bosch. It was only $140. That's all, but I should be able to do some real fine sanding with this bad boy. There's a little side project I've been doing just to, well, couldn't really do much on that till this guy here, so I just wrapped up my motorcycle pipes with header wrap. Those will be pretty cool when the guy gets them on there. Well, I'm about ready to start sanding here. The third day of sanding. And I can say right now, I'm not the biggest fan of sanding. It's not the greatest thing for my carpal tunnel. And my new sander is good, and I looked up all kinds of information so I can make this sander last forever. But my 8 amp hour batteries, which are just monsters, really make this it's kind of unbalanced. I don't think they intended it to have this battery on there, but other than that, I'm super happy with this thing. It just runs nicely. Alright, sanding's done. Up to 120 grit, and I lost one little knot came out that I had puttied. I'm not even going to worry about it. I'm not going to worry about anything. The legs, they're crooked. The tabletop, it's not flat. Basically, the only consistent thing is the metal frame, the spine of the table. So, but I have a cheat that will hopefully, I mean, the tabletop's never going to be flat because it's just a warped piece of wood. What are you going to do, right? Without spending a million hours on it. I'm not worried about it. It just holds stuff. I'm not trying to build anything fancy on it. So the fact that it's crooked, I think I've made this point like 7 million times, maybe 8 million. This didn't go too well. I taped it, but the bit that I chose to do that with was this. I didn't think about it before I did it once, but that's an auger. That's meant to just ram through studs to run wire stuff. Not to drill finish holes, but I didn't have another drill this size, and I wasn't really thinking about it when I did the first one. And by the first one, then I'm like, well, kind of got to go with it. So that's what I ended up with. Not the greatest, but in the great scheme of things, by the time it's all together, it probably is not going to be that noticeable, to be honest, because there's a whole piece that goes over that that's probably going to obscure view mostly. So we'll see. Don't use an auger for finished carpentry or cabinet work. So this is what happens when you have such a variety of tools, right? This should be in my electrical kit, period. Okay, mock-up. What I'm working on the table now is this. Okay, so at first I thought I needed to take down all 3 of these legs that much. That was my first, because I've been looking at this for days, figuring out what I'm going to do. But then I realized that if I was to do this, that I think I can take this total distance here and then divide that in two, take it off this one, take it off this one, and then what I'll end up with is this will all contact. Now, I'm not looking for flush, flat, or anything like that. I'm just looking for strength. So I hope this is going to work. Doing it this way, we'll see. All right, so these legs are not straight. So when I cut them at a way where this was parallel with that, right? So now I gotta just take off the perfect little chunk down. It's not flat, it's not horizontal, but it's just the way that leg works. Now I've chose to do it this way because I pounded these legs on, and if I pull them off to cut them off, that's just going to loosen up that, right? Because I want to put as little stress and torquing on as few of these as possible. So by doing it this way, I'm only cutting the two, these legs aren't even the same width, or thickness rather. So I'm cutting the thinnest two only. So I'll have the least amount of jostling around on these to keep this joint as tight as possible, because that's really where the strength comes in. Now, when I add these, obviously that's where the real strength comes, but if that whole thing is just really loose right there, it's just not going to be as good as it'll be if it's tight. So I'm trying to keep it as tight as possible. All right, excuse the wind. Okay, my little cuts work perfectly. I got this cut, two of those. So the trick with the legs not being straight, okay? When it comes down to it, I've been doing a lot of thinking to make this as, correct as possible. So when I've got this all set up on level, right? So now I had the option of making this portion level or making this portion level, okay? So now, obviously I'm going to do the bottom because that's what goes to the floor. So I'm trying to make from there to there as direct, straight, level, square as I can, okay? Once I get that, then I'll mark on the table where I'm going to go through the table. Once I have all that figured out, then I'll be able to bolt down the top of the table and then cinch these legs on very tight and put these on, okay? In that order. That way, this is binding the final strength, right? So if I put this on first, and then, excuse me, then I started trying to get this on, this is going to move around, and that's going to loosen that joint, okay? So to make that joint as strong as it possibly can be, I'm doing it last. And I'm also not taking these on and off. Like I saw those in place with my Japanese style pull saw. And I just took my time and did it perfectly. And now they're all correct. I mean, they're within where the table can be just screwed down. I mean, it's not level or square, so, but the key here is that from there to there is going to be as level and square as it possibly can be. This up here is just going to be whatever it is. Wherever that lands after all that is figured out, it is what it is. This is kind of complicated, believe it or not, because when all the legs are not straight, then getting this square and equal measurements to this becomes much more complicated. And let's just say I made it up a couple levels and figured it out. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna work my way around. So I'm checking my level on the bottom to get this as correct as I can, right? And then I mark up here on the table. What I got the biggest problem now is, I don't know if this is gonna show up on camera, but probably, maybe. Can you see how much that freaking doesn't go straight? Like, and then I checked my even older drill and it was making weird sounds, and it's even worse. So, and I think the charger to this one died. So I might actually, after 15 years, might actually have to retire that. But right now, I'm gonna have to drill a hole with a drill that's just kind of doing its own thing, as far as like not going, like, I don't know. It's old, really, is probably what the problem is. I don't remember ever checking that for back in the day to see if it was going straighter, but we'll see. This is going to be one of the harder parts. I have to drill down the top of each one of these and just centering that, you know. So, but I repeated this before, is I don't want to take them off here. So I have to do it here. And putting it on the ground before it's stable, it like I can't drill on it. So it has to pretty much stay there. So I have to get myself up high enough to be able to drill down. So this is going to be one of the more challenging parts of this whole thing, is just getting those drilled correctly. All right, the tabletop has been secured, and I'm telling you, that was a complicated system to get that as good as I got it, and it's pretty good. The goal was to have relatively straight level on the bottom. So the next step is welding these guys on there and somehow imparting friction, tension into that. So that's like, somehow, I haven't really figured out exactly what I'm going to do. But so that thing is pushed into there all the way around. That's the next step. All right, well, I'm back at it. I wrecked my bike yesterday, so I'm super freaking sore. And it's been a few days, and this is undercover, right? But I have no other culprits, that this, a couple here, one there. So the top's kind of delaminating in a few places, which once I get the finish on it, that'll stop. But I'm debating whether I want to sand those out or mess with them at all even. I don't know what I'm going to do with that yet. I do have to do some more sanding. I missed a spot here apparently. I don't know. But yeah, I was just attacked by 5 puppies. And when I say attacked, I shouldn't really use that term, because they just basically rolled up in here and did a bunch of puppy stuff. And I was like, what the heck's going on? So just all the random stuff that gets in the way of getting this bad boy done, which at this point, I've actually kind of modified my whole thing for these. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to notch a little notch. So this actually recesses in there a bit and locks into this. So it'll just give more of a bite on this whole thing. I feel it's strong already, but you know, this is part of the build. So if I just do that one more little step, I think I'll get a heck of a lot more strength than just trying to compress. You know, just go ahead and carve it out a little bit. This method, I think, with a little more work, could be the only way this. So like if you wanted to build this table, well, you need to weld that part. So you kind of need a welder to build this table. So never mind. But yeah, these could actually be left unwelded, and then this would be like an IKEA table that could be taken apart. But once those are welded, the table's really not going to come apart. Even though, I mean, the top could come off, but that would be pointless. And now the top's bubbling, I'm thinking about putting some kind of, I don't know, but thinking, maybe, probably not though. I'm going to finish it, but I don't know, maybe some kind of leveling epoxy. Ugh, no, watch my mouth. I'm getting crazy now. Alright, so what's going on now is both my finishes say sand to 220. It's like I sanded to 120 and I was like, yeah, 120. And then I read the directions on the one and it says start at 120 and get all the way to 220, 4 steps. I'm like, oh, what are you kidding me? Then I look at the other one and it's like put a little bit on there and then sand it with 220. Oh, I'm just like, are you kidding me? Why does it have to be so much sanding? I mean, ugh. And now I'm just like, you know, it's just all about, oh, it'll look better if you put little thin coats on it. And you say, it's like, man, I'm not trying to make fucking antique furniture here. You know what I'm saying? I'm just trying to make a damn scrap table. And to spend 50 million hours sanding is just not gonna, no, I'm not gonna do it. I sanded to 120. 120 is what it's getting. I'm putting one coat. I'm not sanding that again, and it's gonna be done. All right, let's see what it looks like then after I'm done, because, you know, some people just don't want to spend their lives sanding. Yeah, it's a pretty good way to put on a table leg. It's done! Check this thing out! Is this not the coolest scrap table you ever seen? Come on now. So the biggest challenge with this was getting these legs to go straight, because the legs are all crooked. So you have to make sure that they're straight from here down. And I got that. So it's had to eyeball things and all this to get it right, but I got it right. It looks good. Subscribe. Peace.